Hello, welcome to the Big Scuba Show.
My name is Mallory Haas, and I am the director of the Ships Project, and I'm here with the Big Scuba podcast, talking about maritime history and cleaning up the marine environment.
Today's episode is sponsored by Narked at 90, so let's find out a bit more about them. Narked at 90, their tagline has been beyond technical, which describes them pretty well. John Routley and Brent Hudson launched the company over 20 years ago. They are both technical divers who have logged thousands of mixed gas dives between them over a 30-year period. Using their engineering know-how and diving expertise, have developed bespoke, personal, commercial and military diving equipment and products of a universally recognised, unparalleled calibre.
Their ability to be adaptive and versatile with their developments led them to support the NHS during COVID. Using their superior knowledge of breathing and oxygen monitoring systems to help develop emergency ventilators. They also design and supply the sneaky stuff used by defence-based development groups throughout the Western world, although they can't tell us much about that. If you're thinking of moving across to tech diving or completely new to diving, Narked at 90 can advise and guide on the best equipment and setup for your personal or commercial requirements. Narked at 90 have unparalleled experience of shearwater dive computers and are the longest serving and sole and UK European service centre for those. They are happy to offer technical support, servicing, repairs and upgrades to all shearwater computers, past and present. Narked at 90 stock shearwater computers, but are also stockists and technical support centre for many other manufacturers, including Divesoft, JJCCR, Hollis, Revo and Kiss Rebreathers.
Based centrally in the UK, Narked at 90 also offer full rebreather head servicing for selected manufacturers.
Bespoke cable assemblies.
Advice on specific fitting requirements.
Suggestions and guidance for home builds.
Computer laser cutting and engraving.
Pressure testing to simulate 400-metre dives.
So, Narked at 90, a reputation built on supporting both manufacturers and divers worldwide.
Go to narkedat90.com and make sure you are following their social media to keep up to date with their latest news and offers.
Narked at 90, large enough to cope, small enough to care.
Hello and welcome to the Big Scuba Podcast. My name is Ian. I am your dive master for today. Welcome to episode 160. With me is, as always...
Hello, Gemma here. Hope you're all well and thank you for downloading.
I was just about to introduce you and you jumped right in there.
Well, I'm here.
So, thanks for downloading this episode. And once again, we have a great guest for you. Coming up, we have the lovely Mallory Haas, who, if you don't know her from Ships Project, archaeology, you might have heard from Mallory, seen her with Ross Kemp on Sky.
So she took part in the Shipwreck Hunters series.
Yeah, and digging around in the English Channel looking for shipwrecks and
treasure.
treasure.
Yeah, they did a dive on the actual Mary Rose site with Ross Kemp. So
that was the first one on episode 2, on second series, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we obviously have had Ross Kemp on as a previous guest, so if you want to listen to that, head back.
Yeah, and I can't remember which one that was, actually. That was about 10 episodes ago?
Yeah, probably. It was this year.
Probably,
yeah.
It was this year, yeah. It was quite recent.
Just head to the website and search Ross Kemp and he'll pop up.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. We have been diving today and we've just stopped at our usual watering hole to get a cup of tea before we head back, and we're in Thetford, and where we've pulled in, we seem to always manage it to pull
adventure.
in to where there's a car meet going on, and lots of very interesting cars and lots of loud exhausts, and I don't know how many cars are here now.
Well, it's getting busier since we've been here. Yeah.
And the police are going round. It's all quite interesting. So
So
yeah.
if you hear any pops and bangs, it's not Ian. It's
No.
the car's outside.
No. That's so rude. We want to say also about what's coming up. We obviously we just mentioned being diving. We've got a few shout outs as well. You know, the chat that we have with Mallory is really quite good.
Yeah, very enthusiastic about
In fact,
what she does.
do apologise. We did actually go over time on our chat with Mallory.
Be prepared. It's quite a lengthy podcast, this one, but it's entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all in there. We had an email which was really cool, and I'm not going to read all of it, but somebody actually, and I always welcome people, you know, our listeners' feedback.
But they listened, didn't they?
They do,
to the podcast?
and I've made a big mistake, and I'll put my hands up. You know, I got things wrong. I mentioned on last episode that when we was at Lot Long, I saw scallop, and I just happened to mention about how, you know,
Didn't look very
about
Yeah.
cooking one, and I got it wrong. You meant to actually add butter to it and then fry
Yes, but
with a
one
little
of
bit of garlic and salt, and voila.
Yes, delicious. But
I
one
know,
of
so
our
I do
listeners
apologise for that.
took umbrance about it, didn't they?
They did take a little bit umbrance about it because, you know, you're not allowed to make a joke these days.
No, but you're listening to the wrong podcast if you think
You
that.
are. So, you know, thanks for, you know, do listening, and thanks for, you know, making the effort to write a massive, quite a long email, you know, and
It brightened up our day.
it did, and the people we shared it to thought that was quite good as well. You know, and yeah, so I hope that apology has kind of covered everything. I did get that wrong about, you know, how we approach that. So yeah, but if you've got any other ideas on how you like your scallop,
Yeah,
do
let
let
us
me
know.
know.
Any other recipe
Absolutely.
suggestions for seafood? That was great.
yeah, that'd be really cool. And if you are going to write us some feedback, please add your name, because there's no name, and you know, whoever
They gave us a title, didn't they?
CWJZ.QQMYN84 is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
so,
listener.
That's really good. That's good to know you're out there. Thank you very much. But no, seriously, we do actually really love it here, and like today, people come up to us and talk and chat. They look for the flag, and that's
They
really
did,
cool.
yeah. We had some really friendly people come and visit us. We had the flag up. We were in a lovely Ford Ranger with buses written all over
better
it.
cover that in a minute.
Yes,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was lovely to see everyone. Really busy at Stony Cove today.
Yeah, it's
Super
really busy.
Yeah.
And visibility at Stony was really nice. We were going to do a river clean today. That was what we actually had down for, but the actual visibility
Wouldn't have been very good.
was like, well, totally,
Tea.
yeah, like a cup of tea really. It's totally, we wouldn't have been able to see anything or do anything at all today, so we quickly, thankfully, I think we must have had one of the last car park spaces at Stony today,
Yeah, definitely.
which was really cool. It worked out really well.
Yeah. We
and-
dived in our full face masks today,
we did.
and saw some perch and a massive pike.
Yeah, specimen perch they got there, and in underneath the, if you know Stony Cove and you know the diving there, underneath the pub, where you can go in and see Nessie, absolutely full of little fry at the moment, little perch, all in there, thousands of them.
It's really lovely to see this time of year at Stony Cove. I remember last year, and there were fish in the cockpit as well.
Yeah.
It was just really like magical.
I literally just dropped down, and it's like I saw you, looked round, and there's
Three
a great
fish.
big pike. Great big pike. One of the pike come up.
Yeah, and then we saw
really
the
cool.
perch a bit later, didn't we?
Yeah,
On
there's
the
two
dive
big perch
ended.
were just wandering around, and
Yeah.
a bit like the police are at the minute, actually, just
Yeah,
wandering
in
around,
and out of this car park.
in and out, looking at the cars.
Yeah, and it was great to see some. Yeah, there's plenty of schools with new divers doing their
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
and,
There was a school there from Kent today, wasn't
Blue Ocean Diving. So
Yeah.
hello everybody. Hope you had a good day.
there? Yeah, big turnout from them. A lot of divers.
Yeah, and we saw familiar faces, and we saw Bobby Marley, she's a staff instructor.
Yeah, Bobby was on our full face course, wasn't she?
Yeah, back in February
at
yes.
Gildenberg at 3 degrees water.
Yeah.
When we had to take our masks off. And we all enjoyed that. We all enjoyed taking our masks off at Gildy in 3 degrees water. Cheers, John. Thanks for that.
But yeah, so Bobby was at Stony doing
I didn't protest at all.
No. She was doing what was it, IM course?
Yes, yeah.
No,
AI.
AI,
yeah.
With assistant instructor
Yeah,
course.
she's doing that for a few people and getting people signed off.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting some of the things that she was saying about the switch over between everything being online to some things still being on
paper.
Having to use paper, and the two don't always marry up. And we find that in everyday life, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, where things are in paper and you're slowly moving over into the computer world.
Had their heads very much into some paperwork when we saw them at the pub. But,
yeah.
So
you see, have you started using the Paddy app yet?
I've got it downloaded, but not for my logbook.
No, so I quite like having that paper logbook.
Yeah, I might put it on there, but no, I like the paper one as well.
Honey's using the app, and I get it. You know, I think it's like the new way, and to me, there's always something nice about having that paper.
Yeah.
That paper thing.
Yeah.
Old school, I guess.
So, and then at Stony, we also obviously had the flag up, but we also had some knocked at 90 slap straps.
Yeah.
And people
about 18 or 19 of them went.
Yeah, and if anybody is at Stony next weekend, so that will be the 30th of September.
Yeah.
We'll be there again, and if you'd like a knocked at 90 slap strap, and we will have some discount codes as well.
To give away 10%.
So you need to come and see us though, so to get those.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be a little suggestion box as well.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. If you can leave us your suggestions, and if you want us to give you a shout out on the next episode, then do that. Leave your name, and we'll do that. Or if you've got any recipe ideas for fish and shellfish, then let's have them too.
So it's a very good day, and also our full face masks. We're officially on the Ocean Reef website now as UK
very much.
ambassadors.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
I want to say thanks to Luca and his team and the Ocean Reef family for inviting us to join in.
No, really proud to be part of it, and look forward to our full face mask journey.
Yeah, so that'd be really good. Next Saturday I'm on DM duty for Crystal Sea Scuba, but you and Honey, by the sound of it, are going to be doing shore cover, which will be really good.
Never done before, so will be interesting.
That's quite an interesting experience. Yeah, it is. Talking about experience, so we today are in this beautiful white brand new Ford Ranger Wild Track, and it's been given to me for the last couple of days as a test, because I'm looking to swap vehicles about at the minute, and one of the things I'm looking at is potentially a Ford Ranger.
Yeah.
And buses of Norwich, you might have seen a post, we had a disagreement about my experience with them last week, but I have to say with buses, they've pulled out all the stops.
And they've done a good.
We've come, and I've fed back my experience, which it wasn't
a good experience.
It wasn't the best of experience, no, but fed it back, and they've acted and sorted it out, and we've talked, and they said, well, if you're looking for a truck, try the new ones.
Yeah,
and this has been fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, great customer service, and it's great that we've been able to test drive this vehicle and use it as a dive vehicle.
Yeah, I'm going to be updating my post that I did, and because it's only right.
Yes.
If you, my belief is if you make a complaint or you raise a concern, then you should also reward by giving good feedback
if it's dealt
when
with.
it's dealt with, and they have.
Yeah.
So to be fair to them, in all honesty,
good communication, which is important these days.
So I've got to say to Sam, thank you very much for lending us this truck, and we thought, well, we can't do the river clean, that's out. We'll see if we can get to Stony, and we did.
Yeah.
And this is doing about I think last time I looked, it was about 36 to the gallon.
Yeah, it's really
For a truck.
it's performed
Yeah.
amazingly.
Ford Ranger truck. It's a brand new, it's the new shape. Really nice place to sit.
Nice interior, and the
yeah.
buck on the back. We've got all our dive
what?
gear and the buck on the back.
What you said.
So-
Language, please. My mum might be listening.
So it's performed very well as a dive vehicle.
That has, yeah, lots of room, and going to be picking the squids up in the morning, and then what we're going to do tomorrow. So we'll see. We
Make the most of
can't
the
go paddleboard in that, our usual spot because the
Scouts are in.
are taken over. They're naughty little scouts. Anyway, so big thumbs up to the brand new Ford Ranger, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So we'll be putting a post together about that to kind of wrap that up and see how the next few weeks develop. Because a lot of these manufacturers got quite a wait. So,
Well, you've been told.
so I'm in an old banger at the minute, which I, you know,
Don't knock it.
no, it's doing well. Touch wood. So yeah. Anyway, we need to give a big great well done to and a shout out to somebody who one of our very first guests.
Yes, very first. I think
you know,
episode.
coming up for nearly 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and we've watched from afar. We've had her on and her dad.
Very early in 2020.
Yeah.
As she appeared. Yeah.
And you know, is doing loads of stuff. Always, I don't know, jumping out of a plane like you have, and all sorts of things. Always busy, always active, and always got a smile on her face.
Yeah, and she's so well supported by her parents and her dad, and
Yeah.
we've met them several times face to face, haven't we, at the
Yeah,
shows and
yeah.
at NDAC, and yeah, she's just full of positiveness.
Who are we talking about?
Grace Westcott.
There we go.
Yeah, so well done, Grace, for doing your DMs.
Round of applause, we've got to say. Well
Yeah,
done.
definitely an inspiration for anybody out there to show how far you've come
Yeah.
over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
absolutely.
Through
you know, if you're thinking
COVID.
about doing, you know, the dive master role, sometimes an overlooked role. I think sometimes where, you know, people look at going on to be either an assistant instructor or instructor,
Yeah. Miss it out,
and-
maybe you'll go through it too quickly.
and go through it too quick. And it's a role to enjoy. Get your teeth in that first professional level of diving. You know.
Well, look how much
and
you enjoyed it.
I love it. I think that's really good. You know, I've been a DM for a few years now, and you know, I've never ruled out going becoming an instructor, but I enjoy being a DM.
Well, it's all about
does.
timing as well and what's happening in life.
Yeah, exactly that. And you need to be give dedicated time to go through an instructor's course.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can't do that, then that's probably not the right time for you.
Yeah, but we'll watch Grace's, continued adventures
Yeah,
underwater.
definitely. Yeah,
and,
we'll make a great instructor in time, and we'll make a great dive master too.
Yes,
You know.
yeah. So it's been, if you haven't heard of Grace, look her up. She's on Instagram. She's been on various. She's been on
Scuba
the
Grace.
Scuba Diving magazine or Scuba Go Diving show. She's
Yeah,
been on.
yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely a great girl to follow.
Yeah, and we should mention actually the Go Diving show. I don't know if you've seen the email come around.
Yeah, that's being talked about now.
Yeah, it's going to be bigger and better than last year, which is really good.
10,000 square metres
Yeah,
more bigger.
So
Yeah.
watch this space. That'd be good to get there next year. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna be drowned out by
Vroom,
loud
vroom.
exhaust. They're kind of running out of room. This
They're
huge
surrounding
car
us.
park in Thetford. We're being surrounded by hot hatches and all sorts.
What else have we got to say? We've got quite a lot lined up with recordings.
Yes. Yeah,
So
we've got a busy few
We've
months coming
got
again.
Ben and Sam coming back on
Yay.
from Lundy Diving, so
Yeah.
we'll be talking to them this coming week.
Hear what the whelks have been up to.
The
Yeah.
whelks and the divers.
And the divers. I wonder who's more trouble, the whelks or the divers?
I think I know the answer to that one. And then we've got Abby Barnes coming on. We've
Yeah.
got Chris Lemons.
Yeah. Last breath.
Bobby Sholly, another Women Divers Hall of Fame lady.
Yeah, US Navy captain, I believe.
Yeah.
Been involved with submersibles, knows lots about, the Ocean Gate tragedy. She's been involved with NASA, from what I understand. Done loads of stuff.
That should be a good one. And then we've got one of our...
They're all good.
They're all good, I know.
But I know what you mean.
Lots of, experience.
Yeah.
And then we've got Chris Taylor, who's local to us from Norfolk.
Yeah.
But he's recently been on Channel 5 on the programme Norfolk and Suffolk, talking about snorkelling.
Does some awesome drone stuff as well.
Yeah, Sheringham Snorkel Trail. He's a big advocate of. So if you look that up, Norfolk and Suffolk on Channel 5. But Chris will be talking to us in early November.
Yeah.
So we've got quite a busy...
We have, got busy time. Yeah.
We thought it was going to get quiet.
No.
And then we're off on a couple of adventures in the coming months, aren't we? October, we've got an exhibition to go to.
Yes.
And probably a few more people to chat to.
Yeah, we've been asked to give a talk as well.
We have, yes.
So we need to do that as well. That's going to be fun. Look forward to that.
Yeah, we're always happy to put ourselves out there. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, all part of it. So come say hello to us if you see us wandering around Stony. We always love hearing from you, and if there's any particular episodes that really stand out to you, and let us know why and which one. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, so I think we better get Mallory Haas on.
I think so too, before we even get drowned out by someone's stereo who's now backing in. So anyway, thank you very much, and enjoy this episode.
Yep, so this is episode 160, and it's Mallory Haas.
Okay, so Mallory, welcome to the Big Scuba podcast. It's really lovely to have you, and hopefully you'll be familiar to some of our listeners. They've seen you on TV as well, and people from the diving world. So first of all, how did you get into scuba diving? What got you started?
So you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not from around here. The Devonians like to tell me all the time, because I'm in Plymouth. Is that I started off in the Great Lakes. I'm a terrestrial archaeologist by trade. And when I was working there, I was doing some larger conferences, and I went to a big conference on historical archaeology, and I realized like the area that I was working in, like the time period, was also covered under shipwrecks, so underwater stuff, so like contact period, post-medieval stuff. And I was at the conference, and I stepped into a underwater session, and I was just kind of hooked. So I went back home, got my scuba certification, and started working in the Great Lakes on shipwrecks.
Wow.
So went into like a lot of times in the Great Lakes, we do sanctuaries, we do kind of mooring. We put down moorings, so you're not anchoring to the wrecks. So they're better visitation. So I started working with areas like the and different Superior, and especially in Michigan. I did a lot of my training, and I worked with a nonprofit called MAST in Lake Erie, and did a lot of stuff there, and went on the board, and then got completely engulfed in shipwrecks, and then I wasn't interested in terrestrial anymore. And then I started working with Primari, which the SHIPS project. Primari had funded the SHIPS project for 6 years. It's a U.S. research foundation. And I ended up in Plymouth and met my husband, and kind of here I am.
And he's based in the UK now then. It's pretty much. Yeah.
This was a much nicer place than Cleveland. You've got palm trees down here, and about a 5-minute walk to the sea. So this was much nicer.
Yeah.
And the water's often warmer down there as well, isn't it? It's warmer than it is up here anyway.
Yes, yeah, no, it's extremely warm this year. It's like concerningly warm. I was in the channel. We were doing a 30-meter dive, and I usually wear a wetsuit, just because even in May I just wear a wetsuit. I just like it a bit better. I started off in the wetsuit in the Great Lakes doing ice diving, so it's not.
Right.
I'm actually.
That's keen.
I just once I get to like a certain temperature, it doesn't really bother me that much. So a semi-dry is fine. But I was going back to being here, we were looking at this plane engine that we've been surveying, and I was sitting there and I was like, I'm not chilly. And I looked at my compass, or I looked at my computer, and it was 16 degrees at 30 meters. And I thought, oh, that's
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
16.
yeah,
Yeah, that's doable.
yeah.
yeah,
It's like,
but
oh,
at 30 meters, that doesn't sound right, does it?
no, it's not. And it's, it's that whole thing that we've kind of been talking about with like the climate change, and we're seeing our waters getting warmer, and the streams are changing.
Yeah.
And that's very concerning for a lot of the biology that lives in like the nesting areas of like, the river valleys, because that's where all the baby fish go to become bigger fish, and that's where all of the magical stuff happens. And if those rivers warm up too quickly, or even, over 19 degrees, like the Tamar here in Plymouth, it can be disastrous for the outcomes of those really important species. So 16 degrees at 30 meters doesn't take a lot to heat up all around the edges to 19. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think I saw, because I live on the coast here, East Coast, and the sea temperature today with the people that swim was 19.5.
Yeah.
That's obviously surface, but
Yeah.
it still sounds warm. It's just...
it is. It's very warm. It's just, when I started diving in the UK about 10 years ago, I always dived in a dry suit. It's only in recent years that I've kind of picked up diving in a wetsuit more often.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it just shows, people can transition from a dry suit into semi-dries and wetsuits, and it's not that bad.
No, I love it.
Yeah, we've just been up to the Farne Islands diving in semi-dries. Yeah, and it didn't feel cold once, did we?
No. I prefer it in up down to probably about 10 degrees. I think that's kind of doable, I think.
Yeah. Starting off with like, I don't usually, if it's before May, I'll be in a dry suit, and then around May, like 10, 11 degrees down here, and then that's absolutely fine. For like 15-minute dive, that's all right.
Yeah, I prefer the flexibility. I think that's so much nicer.
Yeah, well, there's also the thing about being able to pee anytime you want, which is just
that's the bonus.
It's so nice.
With not all this clubber on.
No, you're like, oh, do I have that on right? Do I have to do this? Did I connect that right? Is the zip on? Is the tape working? All of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So no, it's just like, and you can just drink as much as you want. The other thing, like, you don't have to think about it. You can just like, drink everything that you see and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. So what level of diving have you done? Rebreather? Have you gone through the sort of tech levels?
I've got my 60-meter trimix ticket.
Wow.
And then I'm in the middle of doing my dive leader with BSAC, and then I have my HSE part 4.
Yeah.
And then I was considering doing rebreather, but a lot of this stuff, I think I might have done it a few years ago, depending on the projects that we were on. It's kind of all dependent on the things that we end up, researching or we want to do. But I'm still kind of ambivalent if I should do my surface supply or my rebreather, because it depends on where we're going with this. And I think more so because of the 1,000 Tires project, that the surface supply is probably a bit more important to do, because that means we can do commercial cleanups.
Yeah.
Because we've got 3 or 4 commercial dive companies down here in the Southwest who have, given some of their time to doing there's certain areas that we need to clean up, and you can only use commercial divers. And I think that might be the better thing, because I've done commercial scuba for many years, probably the past 8-9 years now.
Yeah.
And I've worked on commercial boats, even offshore. So it's not unknown to me. So I think that's
You've worked in some tough conditions then.
Yeah, I got stuck on a couple of boats offshore for a few weeks. It wasn't the intention, and lack of clothes.
So you mentioned the 1,000 Tire project. So how's that come about?
So I work for the Ships Project, and I turned the Ships Project into a CIC. So before that, it was just a community project. And while we were looking for shipwrecks in Plymouth Sound, we started to find all of this rubbish. Looking for it, we're using sonar, geophysics, magnetometry, side scan sonar, all of the really nice, lovely kit that not everyone gets to play with. But because Plymouth is the home of marine autonomy, and also a lot of the offshore companies have bases here, we get to get our hands on some really expensive, rare kit. So about 9 years ago, Sonodyne had offered to do some testing with a sonar called a wavefront sonar system. And from that, we got really detailed sonar images of about 20% of Plymouth Sound. And you can see all the way down to almost the tire tread on a tire.
Wow.
It's that good down to 30 meters. And we started to notice all of these tires, and this is in kind of the main areas where we would be diving at, or we would be looking at, not like the offskirts about like up the river by, where the Navy's at, where Devonport's at. And there were well over 1,000 tires. And also we could see some of the rubbish, so a lot of the dumping that had been historic. And about, we saw it about 9 years ago, microplastics really weren't a topic the way that they are today. Because we know that tires on the road produce microplastics, and well, pretty much everything produces microplastics. But we also didn't realize is that the tires that are on the foreshore and the ones underwater are releasing other really nasty chemicals like mercury, lead, the a specific type of chemical that's used on tires to help them not break down under sun conditions, so UV conditions, which really affect salmon.
Wow.
So was it 2020, I put in a idea to do a crowdfunder with Plymouth City Council, and I thought, well, it might work. I don't know. I didn't even know if it was a good idea, really. It was just kind of, doing like a test bed, and they're like, oh no, it's a great idea. I'm like, oh, all right. now I'm going to have to do something. So we did this crowdfunder, and then we won, and I was like, now I'm really going to have to do something, because you never really know. So we did the crowdfunder, came out of it, and we were in the middle of COVID. So we started doing tire collections, like kind of on our own. But we had the idea that possibly the tires could go into kilns to be used for creating cement.
Okay.
It would be a fuel source, like a carbon black source, low O2 in the kiln, meaning there wouldn't be much byproduct then after they would be burnt. And then the metals could then be taken outside and then scrapped, because there's like wire infrastructure inside of tires, especially like the newer ones that we see. Though most of the time the ones that we're seeing on the seabed are a bit older. I even found a tire from the 1920s.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's a long time of dumping.
But were these tires, were they, signed off to be dumped there, several years ago, and they're kind of been forgotten about? What's the history of how they actually got there?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. It just seems like, why are they there?
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the questions for a lot of people, is like, how did all of this stuff get there? And we know that you lose pots and you lose this and there, and there's a couple of reasons. I mean, most of the time the larger tires, the tires that we see have holes in them. They've been used as fenders. They're in their second life on the side fender, especially on the the fishing boats, the tugs, on your industrial line of shipping. So that's one reason that you'll find like isolated tires, but quite a few. So they're not like piled on top of each other. They just come off and you just get another one because they're very cheap. And
you always find when we've done river cleans, you always find a car tire and things like that. But 1,000, that's like commercial dumping, isn't it? That's somebody signing off on that.
Yes, and that's part of the thing that we want to be careful about, not to like point fingers. But when you see a pile of tires that are on top of each other, that's not the random loss of an item. That's strategic dumping. And that's one of the things that has happened in Plymouth. And if it happens here, it's happened in all of the major fishing ports. So we have big piles of dumped rubbish. And one of the things that we do see is that tires were used sometimes to like weigh down warps, like trawl warps, and then to get rid of them so you don't have to deal with them.
Yeah.
And as soon as they sink to the seabed, then they start getting filled up with sediment, because we've, like any port, you'll have a sediment issue and, changing of that, and then just become a little bit more part of the seabed, and it's really hard to get rid of them after that. So we know well over 1,000 tires from the sonar that we have, and that's not including any of the foreshore stuff. So, because the tires are on the foreshore are actually the worst polluters when it comes to microplastics and the chemicals breaking down, because they go through like tidal changes, UV issues, all of that stuff. So you can see the entire seabed is then covered in microplastics.
Yeah.
Which is just,
That's really horrendous. That's really bad.
It's heartbreaking, because you can see places that are, very idealistic, when you have like yachts and you have moorings and people, some of the, even not just outside of Wembury, and then there's just tires everywhere. And unless you get really close on the muddy foreshore, you don't realize how they're actually affecting the rest of, like, the invertebrates or the mollusks that are there, because the mollusks are picking up the oysters. That's, part of the thing. Like we produced a white paper earlier in the year that talks about the historic pollution in Plymouth Sound, and there's a correlation between historic pollution and the issue of seagrass dying off on a global scale, and the advent of the vehicle, the car. So somewhere between like post 1920 and up all around to like 1933, just before the seagrass dies off. So there's something that we produced in a chemical that has drastically affected seagrass, because even with all of like the garbage and the waste and the stuff that we were putting into our ports for like the past 500 years before that, because the sea was the biggest place to put all of your garbage and all your poo and all your dead animals and all your cats and all everything else, none of it had a problem with that. But something we produced in that, the industrial revolution, the post-industrial revolution, like from the 1900s onwards, really affected what we did with the sea.
Yeah, it's frightening, isn't it? And then we're taking fish and mussels and oysters from that sea, and they're filtering all this.
Which are basically eating all that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing that we like. I think I really want to get across with the whole tires thing is, sometimes if you are diving, you will see a lobster or a crab in a tire, and that's all, we understand that, and they're using it as a habitat. But one of the things that I say is that even though a mouse is living in a tin can, it's not its home. So we have to give them a better home. We have to clean it up, and we need to put something back. So if we pick up, 50 tires, we need to put down like, a reef queue. We need to provide a better, stabilization for, homes for those guys.
Yeah.
So it's not about, completely tearing up the seabed and not having it there so the divers can see it. It's just about the other thing is that if what the crabs and the lobsters and the small invertebrates are eating off of the tires is now into our food chain. So there's only certain things that will grow on tires, and they will only grow for a certain amount of time, because once it gets up to a certain level, like with the mercury or the lead, it will die back. And then we're eating that, and then the next phase and the next animal up is eating that. So we just need to get it out of the chain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not good, is it?
No. And then that's the food side, and then it's, can disrupt commercial movement of ships, and it just affects everybody.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talk about, because we work very well with our stakeholders here in Plymouth, is that when the cruise liners come in, because we're like trying to develop the whole idea of more cruises coming into Plymouth, because we want to invite people, and especially the Americans. Americans love it here, as you can see, because I stayed. Is that if one of the anchors from the cruise vessels or from one of the tankers that's waiting to come in to the Catwater gets fouled in any of the there's tons of cables out there. The tires are holding down trawl warps. A pilot boat has to come out and de-snag the main anchor for any of these vessels. If they miss the tide, then they can't come in.
Oh, wow.
And that means completely missing that in-port, off-port, and they may only be in port for 24 hours. So they're just coming in to offload something, might be feed, sand, anything like that. And because there's only a couple meters clearance in some of the areas of, our river, because it's only a 30-meter It's only 30 meters deep at most, really. And the same thing for the tourists. Can you imagine if a tourist vessel is only doing like, they're only here usually for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And you look at 12 hours on shore. If you miss the tide, well, that's it. You're not going to Plymouth.
Yeah. No.
But they're getting caught up in some of these tires and that.
Yeah, so the tires, so there's like there's tires and there's warps and then there's tons and tons of cable. So one of the other things that's over across Plymouth Sound, and it would be like that you would see too many of the areas that have kind of offshore, then you need to put to the breakwater.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of cables run out to the breakwater for power. And once the cable would fail, and so they wouldn't go and pick it up, they'd just run another one. So we've been duped by these cables before, because we were very, very certain that what we found was a cannon, like the cannons, like how cannons look on like a magnetometry survey. They kind of glow the right way. And we were absolutely convinced when we were going down to do some target diving for the ship's project that we were going to find a cannon site, and all it was just cables on top of cables on top of cables.
All right.
So they can show up very differently on like some of the geophysical surveys. And then on top of that, the cables can then snag other things. And the tires can then snag other things. And then the trawl warps then snag other things. Because we were looking for, we've been investigating this potential slave wreck site in front of Drake's Island. So from the 1600s. And then bumped into a very early aircraft engine. So 1913, 1910.
Oh, wow.
So it's a 10-cylinder engine. They're extremely rare. They're the only ones that I know of that were called Anzani engines. So we're talking like 1911, 1913.
Nice.
And then a few of them were put on like what they call water boats at the time, or like, you know, what would have been like a flying boat. So we were investigating that. My dive light failed me, and then my backup dive light didn't work. So anyways, I was like next to the engine. I needed to get all of these like measurements down. Anyways, I kind of put my line down because I knew where I was at, went out to it, or where I thought was at. And I was like, oh, this isn't it. Anyways, I felt it and I knew it was a big trawl warp. It was a massive trawl warp. And I like kind of fell off and like, this is not what I need to be doing at like 30 meters.
No.
No.
Went back to the shot line, found the rest of the divers. It was terrible viz that day for whatever reason. And then we all went over with the working lights to finish out the survey on this wreck. But you just never know where the stuff is going to show up. And historic, you know, dumping like that is just everywhere. I mean, and Plymouth isn't anywhere near as busy as somewhere like the Thames, you know, somewhere, you know, the Essex coast and that, Kent, anywhere like that. So what we see in Plymouth is probably like a small portion of what any of those ports would look like. And it, you know, Plymouth has dived quite a bit, where like Newlyn and Falmouth isn't dived anywhere near the same way like the Sound is. So we only get divers, you know, like what they're telling us, and also because we have the survey data. So if we went out and did a big geophysical survey off Newlyn, it would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Which is extremely disturbing, because if you think about what's being landed in Newlyn, especially for like the whole of the UK or export imports when it comes to fishing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to eat that.
No, puts you right off fish. Yeah. No, so that's just going to progress and build as long as you've got kind of funding coming in.
Yeah, so that's our plan. So the really big news is that we haven't done the press release yet, but we've been working with a company called Greenergy Limited. So Greenergy is one of the biggest fuel producers and importers in the UK, and they were the first ones in the UK to produce fuel from cooking oil.
Okay.
And they're taking all of our tires. They've got a depot here in Plymouth to make into a biofuel that's actually marine grade biofuel.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah, so this means that we don't, the whole we were kind of test bedding for like, a year and a half. What do we do with the tires? It's all very, we want to get the tires up. What do we do? And green energy has really solved that problem. And
That's
we're working with there's like a partnership. We've got an MOU, and there's a recycling company called Triple SI, and they're actually recycling the tires for green energy.
Right.
So it's this fabulous thing. And then wherever green energy has a port, because we're kind of prototyping this whole 1,000 tires cleanup thing in Plymouth, you can do at any port where green energy is at. So then we're not spending time moving the waste anywhere. It just all
Yeah.
goes to one place.
Yeah, well, that's good, isn't it? I think that's always the problem with when you do this sort of stuff, is that then the next problem is then what do you do with it once you've recovered it and pulled it up from the sea?
Yeah.
And it's good that you've then found that next thing for it.
Yes. Yeah. So that was always the thing that was always troubling me, because it's the best solution was using it for in the kilns for making cement. But there was only a couple northern facilities doing that. So it'd be hauled all the way up to Manchester, and it always felt a bit silly having to move all of that waste and using the carbon to do it, because it'd take quite a while to fill up a container's worth to put on the back of a ship to go up to Manchester. But this solved all of the problems. And not only that, if it works here, it will work in other places. And if we kind of develop this whole idea of recycling with a profit, that it's worthwhile, we can kind of host the whole Southwest initiative of dealing with the waste.
Yeah.
Which also includes all of the abandoned GRP boats, because we see abandoned GRP boats everywhere. But we need to kind of, that infrastructure to deal with GRP has to kind of be created in this country. So it's something else that we're kind of pushing.
What's GRP?
So all the plastic boats that we see, like, if they're not wooden, they're
Glass
like
reinforced plastic, isn't it?
Yeah. But the problem is that if you want to get rid of a boat, like you decide you're done with it, or it just gets cut up and put into landfill, and that the GRP is this almost like, it looks like glass, and it's glued together, and then it kind of like it removes itself like in layers if it starts to degrade, especially on the foreshore. And it's really, really nasty stuff. It's like it gives you anything that gets in contact with it when it's at that kind of level develops major cancer.
Yeah.
And all sorts of stuff. So you really want to, if the boat's degrading, you want to get off the foreshore. And you can even see, I've seen it on in the Tamar, if a GRP boat starts to delaminate, the whole surface of the foreshore will glisten like glitter.
Yeah.
And it's because that glass is now covering a whole surface, and also creates like almost like an oil slick, so the things underneath can't breathe.
Well, you've got acetone in there as well. That's what's in that.
Yep. Yeah. And there's really nasty chemicals from the early GRPs as well. So even though they're better made, obviously the chemicals weren't checked the way that, they are now and what can be used. And it's extremely harmful. You can't really get it out of the sediments unless you do a massive type of cleanup. So before these really start breaking down, it's something that I think we all need to think about. What do we do with this, and how do we deal with it, like on a national level?
Yeah.
Because I think it was a couple of years ago, DEFRA, which is like the department for kind of dealing with agriculture and cleanups and things like that, wanted to do a big cleanup in the Thames on abandoned boats. And they had identified 1,000 boats they wanted to be picked up that were they've been left. They put a notice on them. If they're abandoned more than 7 years, they're properly abandoned.
Yeah.
So they tried to pick up, I think, 700 of these boats. I don't know how many they ended up getting in the end, but they had to be sent straight to landfill because we just don't have anywhere in the UK to deal with them. And when you cut up GRP, you do the exact same thing if it's going to landfill or if it's on the foreshore, unless it's encapsulated.
Yeah.
So, it's about kind of thinking how we use and what we do from now on, which I think is part of the, talking about this stuff. Because nobody knows that, that we've got all this like weird pollution everywhere.
No.
You have no idea. Like we were we were talking about recently, and like we produced this white paper on historic pollution. It's not just historic pollution, it's just like how things have changed. So in the 1800s, like early 1800s, the oyster beds here in Plymouth were like some of the best oyster beds that you could have. Like there were licenses for fishing. It's extremely profitable for the fishermen. And then the Tamar started filling up with the clay works that were up on Dartmoor, and all of that tin washing and the clay washing started filling in the river, and it suffocated the oyster beds. And that's only within like the last 150 years that it's changed dramatically. So oysters like a hard surface, like to attach themselves to things. You know, we still have oysters, but nowhere near as plentiful as they did. And considering how oysters are like the major, you know, thing, they're the superpower for filtering water. We don't have those filters anymore. And that also means that if we have less clear water, the seagrass can't grow in a deeper depth. So now we only have seagrass here that may be around like 5 meters, sometimes in 7, that will grow. But the seagrass was in deeper water up till that point because we had better clarity in our water. So then it means less seagrass, less biodiversity, and it's all connected. But it's about looking at it.
It's a chain reaction, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's such a short, 100 years is nothing, is it? It's absolutely nothing. Yeah.
No, so, I know that the things that we're doing now, we're not really going to see an effect over for about 20 years, other than getting those, like the big microplastics off the foreshore. The other stuff, it will come in time, but it's only a good reason to get out plastics.
Yeah, no, that's really good, and such a different subject to kind of shipwrecks, but it's all kind of linked, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. I never really noticed it until I noticed it, because I was always looking for heritage underwater. I always had like my eye honed in like pottery, and you're looking specifically for like man-made objects. And then when I started to see the tires, I could not see the tires.
No.
Like they were just everywhere. I just kind of been blinded to it because.
So what's underneath the tires? So when you take the tires away, do you know what's underneath?
Well, this is one of the things I'd really like to do. So around Drake's Island in Plymouth, there's all these cables and there's tires, but in that area is also one of the earliest submarines called the Maria. So it's one of the things I'd like to go and find, if we could clean up all of this
underneath
stuff.
his tires.
Yeah. So early 1700s wooden
submarine.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then there's a book on her called The Red Marie, and it's about this Days Marie. It's about this whole thing where they lost it because it was a bet through 2 gentlemen of very interesting backgrounds. One's a drunkard and one's just a bit of a fop. And they say that he can create this submarine. He'll go down and then come back up. What he doesn't realize,
he went down, all right.
Oh, he went down. He just didn't come back up.
Funny that.
Who would have known going for a swim?
I forgot to put the plug in. That's what it was.
Well, the thing was, so he had to have buoyancy. So they put wood around the outside of this what was it, the hull of a boat, to kind of give it some buoyancy, and then he had ballast as well that was underneath, like hanging ballast stones. And when they went to go try it, he couldn't sink. So they started chucking more rocks on top, didn't they? And then he went down in a bit of a rush, and he was supposed to send up in his like little area, because he had his whole mapped out, like in his what the submarine was inside. He has a little candle and he has a little block of cheese, and he was going to sit there and he was going to be down there for a while, and he was going to come back up and it was all going to be fine. And he was going to send up little pennants like, red one, I'm okay, black, please come get me, I need assistance, blah blah blah. So it was thought out. It just wasn't thought out in the way that like I was going to die instantly because it imploded because I went down in such a rush, and now that's the way it is. So throw more stones on it, submarine goes down, and then all of a sudden there's this big uprush of bubbles. So, and he's not coming back.
No, so all the airs all come out.
The airs all come out. So then there's this initiative, because there's a whole bunch of people in Plymouth that went out to, like, you know, with their parasols, and it was, you know, a nice afternoon out to go see this submarine. So everyone gets a bit bored and then goes home. So they want to do a salvage operation. Also, it's a naval port, but they don't know exactly where it's at. So they end up finding it. And
so hold on a minute. So not only did this guy come up with an idea of a wooden sub, he actually thought that would be even great idea to go out to sea in it.
oh yeah.
Rather than just like, you know, let's be by the harbour wall just in case. And
oh no, they're in Plymouth Sound, but they're just in the deep part of the channel, so they could get some depth, which was not a very good idea. No, that's the scary part. But that was also part of the bet. Like, you had to go deep enough. You just see these two, you know, these two guys, you know, sitting in one of the many gin establishments in Plymouth, you know,
some alcohol was consumed.
Oh, drunkenly trying to decide this, you know, and you know how it's going to work, and the guy who wanted to do it didn't have any money, so he found this guy in a fabulous pub, because every other place in Plymouth was a pub and every third shop was a knocking shop. So many ladies of negotiable affection, trying to figure out how to do this. And they come up with this, they promote it, there's little pamphlets on it, you know, come out for the day and, you know, see the submarine working.
What history.
So basically what he built wasn't a sub, it was a coffin.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. It's exactly what it is. Yes. Yeah. It was a coffin. And so after this, so we've got these two very interesting fellows. Now comes along someone who is a doctor who says, you know what, now because he's at this depth, he's in suspended animation, we can get him back and revive him.
Of course.
If we can find the submarine. So they find the submarine and they pick it up, and then they move it and they drop it again. But they still think that he's alive in there. And this goes on for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then they end up dropping it and they can't find it again. So we know kind of where it's at, right? And then we could find the ballast piles, because the ballast piles are they're very unique. And to go and find Day's, you know, submarine by this, but we need to clean up Plymouth Sound first. But it's just this fabulous story. You could just see in there with his little candle and his block of cheese and his, you know, and his watch, and he was just gonna, you know, go down for 20 minutes and then come back up.
And where does all this information come from? Is it just
there's a famous book about the recovery, which we have a copy of. I don't know if you can see behind me, we have a rather impressive library.
Yeah.
So some of it's back there, and then kind of pulling all the stuff together, you can read about the Red Maria on the Ships Project website, which we've done like on all of because we've got 7 treasure wrecks in Plymouth Sound as well. So lots of Dutch East Indiamen and gold that hasn't been recovered. So yes, that's it. We were out this past week on Wednesday looking for one of those treasure wrecks when we found the blue lobster. So again, like, it was only by accident we kind of ran into all of that.
You know, blue lobsters. Yeah, up at farms, we see them quite a lot.
Well, I think this is a funny thing. Depending on where you're at, they're actually more common.
I've only ever seen blue lobsters.
Well, I think the one that we saw on Wednesday was actually quite, if you looked at it, it's like the exoskeleton in towards the abdomen. It had quite white and blue, so it was quite light blue. And then I've seen very, very dark blue, almost like, you know, what like unoxygenated blood looks like, kind of blue.
Yeah.
And
a couple of years ago we saw lots, didn't we? But this time we didn't. They were not blue, were they?
I saw blue. What colours did you see?
Normal. Not as many as previous.
I just thought they were always blue.
And North Norfolk, we've seen blue ones.
Yeah.
On the Rosalie.
So what colour are they normally? Because I've only ever seen blue lobsters.
Browny colour, aren't they?
Oh,
yeah, they're like I've got I'll send this picture over to you, but I got a picture of, because I think the other thing is they've only just kind of been noticed. So you've got a lot of people then like noticing these lobsters, and I found a picture of one next to like because it's still a common lobster. They're not genetically different. They're just a color differential.
Mm.
So like, so there's like your normal lobster.
Yeah.
It's a bit browny. You can see some red coloring, and then the blues,
Yeah.
are really, really blue.
Yeah.
And then the connective tissue is the coloring is different as well. So instead of
we probably should say for our podcast listeners that you've just held up a picture of 2 lobsters, one of them brown, one of them blue.
Yes, yeah. And I didn't know this until I asked somebody for it, but if you cook up a blue lobster, they stay blue and they get brighter blue, and then all of the connective tissue in between turns red.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, so it's a different thing. So like the connective tissue on a normal lobster without this like B protein, they turn red, and like the connective tissue in between the exoskeleton turns a bit white.
Mallory, Gemma's taken notes. I don't know if you know this, but Gemma's day job is
fish.
Fish. Wholesale fish.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. I mean, obviously, we've seen blue lobsters, but I don't think we've sold blue lobsters or we've had any, because they usually get imported. But yeah,
no, I think that because I think a couple of them, they were found in the only ones that I've ever seen have been found like in crates, or like fishermen have got them before they've gone into market, because you just wouldn't see them. You're not seeing like that many lobsters. So yeah, I did see one. Somebody sent me a picture of one it was probably about a month ago, that looked almost like a ghost lobster, like it was almost white.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was like, it's a lack of something.
There's a Canadian guy. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, and he's always picking. He is a lobster fisherman, and he put notches in the tail when he finds an egger, as he calls it. I've got an egger here, and he gives them a fish as a little treat, and he sends them back, and he put a little notch in the tail so when they get caught. And he was saying that for every pound, there are 7 years, approximately.
Yes, that's what like the fisherman had said to us who passed him off, so that he had weighed her, and he had approximated that she was about 50 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, she was. I mean, she was big. If she could have her claws could have taken off one of my fingers. She was really large.
Yeah. Do we have the same agreement in the UK that with a certain size, we don't take them? So not small ones, but when they get to a big size, do we like say that's it? We don't take them.
I don't believe so, and Gemma, I don't think that is,
no. I mean, the biggest we've probably had is 2-3 kilos, because I think once they get maybe you've got to cook them right through, and you're not going to get a decent product at the end of it, probably. But
no, they get to a certain size and they don't taste very well either, because you have to cook them for so long. I think it was about when I first came over, some of the ancient old divers had gotten one of like this massive lobster, because I think I have one of the claws still given to me, all of the random stuff that's in the house, and I remember tasting it and thought, this isn't very good.
No.
You don't want to be rude though, do you? Like
it's like initiation.
More garlic required, or a bit more salt.
That's right. Yeah, you just cover everything in butter and garlic, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So go on.
No, I was just gonna say, on a day-to-day basis or a week by week, do you get in the water most weeks to do survey work? And
yeah, I'd say that most weeks we dive 2 to 3 times a week, and on the other about 4 times a week. So yeah, so this week, because we're just coming off springs, it's been this like extremely crazy time of like, let's get all of the best that we can, because we do the foreshore stuff on like the extreme low tides, and then on the neap tides we're doing diving, and the weather's been so good and dry down here.
Yeah,
because it's not been the best of summers. Like, say that now, probably storm like hell. But we try to take advantage of it, because we had a really good summer last year. It was like long issues of dry weather, really good viz. But you can have visibility like we did this weekend Wednesday, and it was like 10 meters and it looked tropical.
Wow.
Or it'd be like can't see anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. We put the divers down and we looked over the boat and we could see them like straight down to the bottom because we were in
That's
the
awesome.
shallows. Yeah, I'll send you the video. But I took my GoPro off my mask. I put it over the boat, could see the divers in 10 meters, and like popped it up right in front of Drake's Island. Just couldn't
That's
believe
brilliant.
it. Just like looked around, could see the boat coming by. Yeah, it just
Yeah. And that shows what UK diving can give, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it can be absolutely magical. I mean, like I've had some of the best drift dives ever that have been in the UK because of like the colder waters. You get, for an archaeologist, you get better preservation when it comes to the archaeology.
Yeah.
And you also have an abundance of sea life, which is just everywhere. And we have it really is just, I think it's just absolutely beautiful. And I don't think sometimes we realize how lucky we are to kind of go over, especially with the shore diving around
Yeah.
the UK.
Yeah.
There's so many places to go. You just flop in anywhere, really. It's what we're
Yeah.
gonna do tomorrow.
You dive in a full face mask as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. We use OTS Guardians because that's what the HSE kind of recommends.
Yeah.
Through water comms, and then if we're doing media work, then we've got a recorder on our back. So yes, yeah, and it's a fun thing if you're like working heavily underwater. And I've done it, and we did this past year with the Ross Kemp TV series. Is we got a CO2 hit. You fill up this cavern.
Yeah.
Because you're working underwater, and they're not, I wouldn't say I'm absolutely in love with them, but I do understand why we use them, especially for communication wise.
Yeah.
They're brilliant.
Yeah. So every time you're like doing your survey work, are you full face mask, or is it depending on what work you're doing?
Yeah, it depends on what work we're doing. So when we were diving on Wednesday, we didn't have them on because we were working so shallow.
Yeah.
We were not no stops. But if we're working on, say something like a deeper wreck that's in like, we're doing like a proper survey, not just like, we'll do target diving. Like we don't know what it is. We'll go down, do a circle search, and we'll come back. Usually for that, we don't wear full face masks, but we're doing a survey where we know what we're doing. We might be doing some excavating. We'll wear the full face mask then, so we can have comms with the surface, so they can send down stuff to us.
Yeah.
We'll have an excavation license, and we'll be lifting or using the water dredge or anything like that.
With your comms, when you use them back to shore, are they live all the time, or do you have to push a button and then you hear a beep and then you talk? And
with the Guardians, no, unless I need to get to surface. So down below, divers, we can hear each other. And then if I want to go to surface, I have to push in to go to surface. They can always if I want to go direct to surface, but surface can always kind of hear what our talking is between.
But that's with the OTS system. So your comms are live all the time.
Yeah.
That's a good system, isn't it?
It is, yeah, I know, it's really good. I mean, it's only, it's just it's a little battery in the ear over here. Everything comes through here, and then the other nice thing is if it's not working, you can reset the system underwater yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
So you can cycle the system, which is, you can't always do that with some of the other, the underwater full face masks.
With ours, we have to push a button, then talk. So we have to get our
breathing
right, get the inward listening as well. Otherwise, you miss it.
No, it depends on how you can have them set up, because you can have it from surface down from the communications box, how you want it set up on some of them.
Okay.
So it can be a bit easier. But out of the Guardians, there was another full face I used to use, yellow. I didn't like that one. My face was like, it was too squishy, so it didn't fit my face right.
Oh, I think I might
I can't remember. And then my favorite is the Kirby Morgan band mask. If I had to wear anything that was full face like that, I'd pick the band mask every day. It's like a TV screen. It's just comfy and it's just so nice.
So does that sit right on the face, or is it more like a helmet?
It's a helmet, but without the hard back. So it's got like a neoprene zip that goes up this way.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's like this is all dry that you do, and you've got like the big reg down here.
Yeah.
But you're talking like a really major investment, which is why you only see them on commercial dive boats, or you've got them because that's a surface supply band mask kind of thing. But no, they're lovely. They're just like you go for a walk in them all day.
Yeah, we're quite new to the full face mask thing, so I think it is a learning curve, and but we're getting some hours out on.
Yeah, I saw you guys. You were trialing out the new
3.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you like them?
Yeah, I like it. It's it's just getting it comfy on your face, and I think it's a whole new way of diving. It won't ever replace half mask.
No.
It's visual wise and vision. I think it's better, and you can turn your head, and you don't have to worry about flooding your mask. And
it's getting the hood right. It seems to be because you feel like if you get it wrong, you either leak air or it feels like it's coming up. And I really don't want the Ross effect that Ross has described. What happened to him?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I forgot about that. Yeah, it turned into Popeye on that incident. Yes, yeah. So you can get like a pressure differential. It can be, you can just be leaking terribly. So like, with like the full face mask, you do these 2 bands first.
Yeah.
You tighten up there, and then this one's only slightly. You only slightly use this one. Now the trick that we use is that we have cut our hoods specifically for warm weather, so that they're slightly open up here, or you invert your hood, and the mask sits on the hood. It's inverted, and that I would say works almost 90% of the time to give you the best seal, is to use it on the inverted hood, because it connects. It's almost like the shark skin that's on the inside. It sits best there.
So you turn your hood inside out? Is that what you mean? Oh, okay.
Yep. Invert the hood, turn inside out, put it on, mask on, like, the skin sits on the edge of the hood. That is that shark skin then.
The smooth part.
Sorry?
The smooth part.
The smooth part, yeah.
Because my hood has got that built on. I got that from Northern Diver, and that's got I forgot like seal skin put around the face of it.
Is on the outside of your hood as well as the inside? Because usually it's on the inside to kind of like to be against the skin. So
that's on the outside.
It's on the outside. Yeah,
it's a piece, and that's what they sell with it's that band.
Yeah. No, because I've got a waterproof. I think I've been using waterproof hoods for quite a while. So I'll turn mine inside out, and then I'll put the mask on.
Oh, it's worth a try.
It is, just because sometimes you just can't get the seal right. Because I always have a problem with the nose dams in those, like, because it has to be. I've got a problem with my ear. I inverted my eardrum like 3 times, so I've got a dodgy ear, so I've got to kind of take it easy going down. And if I don't have the nose dam right, because it has to sit so far that you can push it up easily.
Yeah.
But if it's too far up, then they can't hear you while you're trying to describe like the archaeology that you're seeing.
That's what happened to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Just like you're just sitting there like, oh, you're trying to describe something. And here we have one of the most interesting things I've ever seen in the world, except I can't describe it because I can't speak.
Yes.
It's very much trial and error. I think it's just but there you go. We're getting there, aren't we?
Yeah.
But I think it's worth anybody giving it a go, just to do a try dive and see how they feel. And
well, I think it depends on what you're doing, and why you're using it, because it's always nice to try different things. And we use it specifically because it's what's recommended for media, scientific and scuba when we're doing things like that. And we've got 2 sets with a comms box. And it you know, if you've got two sets of divers, you know, working like, you know, underwater independently, they're brilliant for trying to be able to coordinate stuff like
Yeah.
that. And obviously you need it for like, you know, doing TV shows, because it's all very well us floating around, but if you can't get that like reactionary stuff when you get to see it for like the first time, you know, you kind of lost the moment.
It's true, isn't it? Yeah. And you know, I think Ross has been, the whole program has been really good for bringing diving and shipwrecks, you know, to the masses, and that, you know, and that's what we have to remember, is about bringing it to the masses. And the people who see that, have seen his series, you know, probably never be underwater, never, you know, that they don't want to go underwater, but they're happy to sit there in their living room in the comfort, they're on the sofa, and they can see like all this stuff is underwater, and they're like, wow, you know. And maybe, you know, after watching that, they'll think, hey, I'm going to try this diving lark. That looks good.
No, he's done really well in introducing the whole idea of shipwrecks and diving to like his audience, which is a very different audience, which, you know, you know, you can't say enough about, because they're extremely loyal. And I think the other thing is that it worked really well with us, is that I get excited about something, and then Ross gets excited about it, and then I'm excited because Ross is excited.
Yeah.
And then all kind of comes out in the wash. Because if you've got somebody who, I mean, because Ross had never done anything like this before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So kind of got, you know, you get chucked into it. It was like, oh, you know what you're going to do for this TV series. And then, because I remember in the first series, they, like, the first dives that they had done after he got certified, they sent him to SCuba. And you know what the tides are like up there. And you don't really have time to kind of enjoy what you're trying to do if you're trying to look for something specifically, rather than just going for a dive, because you're thinking about all of the environmental things and all the stuff that can kill you.
Yeah. And he's got to think of something interesting to say.
So,
yeah. You know,
and
you can't
keep buoyant.
Yep, and keep buoyant, not say fuck all the time. And
but you can hear everything, can't you?
I knew that. Like, depending on what's going on, there's a lot of beeping. Like, I can't believe that's what you just did.
But he hasn't done a huge amount of diving, had he? And you think,
no,
you know, he was really given a big task to do, because as we just said, you know, you wouldn't normally say to someone who's done, I know he was he has dived before, but he hasn't done loads of, he's not like, you know, some of the people who we've had on here have done like thousands of dives. They don't think nothing of dropping into the, you know, the English Channel and in the most murkiest conditions. But if you was to say to someone who's done, let's say 50 dives, and say, right, what we're going to do, we're going to give you on full face dive, we're going to get you doing commercial stuff, and at the same time you're going to be doing all this down at 30 meters in some pretty, you know, bleak conditions. You've got to keep your buoyancy. You've got to be in the right place for the cameras. So you're lit, we can see your face. And when you've done all that, you've got to think some interesting things to say in front of the camera. That's a pretty big ask.
Oh, it's a massive ask. And I think he did it. I think he did it really, really well.
Yeah.
Even in like some of like the most challenging conditions. Like, you know, the worst dive I've ever had in the whole of the UK was the dive that we had on the James Egan Lane. I have never had a worse dive in my life. I couldn't even see the wreck. It's a World War II Liberty ship, and it was right here next to me. And it was right there, and I couldn't see it. So we went down the shot line, and I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. Like, it should be right there. We should at least see the shadow of it. And I hooked my reel on the line, and I swam out, and I ran straight into it. I was like, oh God, this is going to be terrible. And we got over to hold one, and we kind of dropped in because the tide was already pushing. Because you know what it's like with TV crew. They're always like, can we do this again? Can we do that again? And like, they don't understand tide. They don't understand that it just doesn't, wait, no, they don't understand diving. Nobody understands diving unless you're diving. You know, and you're trying to be accommodating, because that's why they're there. They're there to get the shots. They're there to get the right thing for, you know, for the program. So it's all about this, like, this give and take with it. and we got into the hold, and I was like screwing around, and I looked over at Ross, and I could see just like the air just pissing out the top of his mask, and I thought, oh, that's not very good. And I looked at his compass, and I looked at his gauge, and I was like, oh God, we got to go home now.
Oh no.
Well, because because you're sitting there, and he's constantly giving a narration of like what's going on, and he does really good pieces to camera. But it's just one of those things, like, to ask all of that. We missed the tide. You're at 25 meters. You're in, it's just crap viz. You got to tell a really good story. You've got a whole diving crew around you that, you're kind of performing for as well.
Yeah.
And then you've only got like this day to do it. You got to do something. Going from like, he had done like Patty beforehand. He had gone on, like how everyone does, like on holiday. But these are very different types of diving, especially if you're working underwater. And I think he did brilliantly with that. And also telling those stories, for background for him. And, when he finally came to Plymouth, and we were able to kind of work in the shallows, and we had good visibility. We were underwater looking at a a Napoleonic shipwreck that we found called HMS Amethyst, and I couldn't get him out of the water. We were in there for 75 minutes.
Wow.
Looking at this and using the metal detector and finding this stuff, and he absolutely loved it. Like, they were like, no, we got enough shots of like, and the cameramen like left, like, he just like, we're done. And we stay down for another 25 minutes. So you can, if you get someone excited about this, they're the best person to then tell about, the rest of the population about this. He was such a good advocate, for history and that. And he was also fun to work with because he doesn't have an ego. You could take, he's a really nice person, because we could do this like Ross Kemp story bingo, because you could just like pick out things, like you just put like a bingo chart, like with like in the middle of it like a goat. You could put goat in your bingo, and he'd have a fabulous story about some goat blowing up somewhere, like that he'd have to land on.
Well, he's done some wrong stuff. I was watching him out in Afghanistan, and he was in the thick of it. There's bullets and RPGs flying around, and he's up there. I think he was with I can't remember who it was, but one of the Marines and British troops, and he don't shy from it, and that comes through with the diving as well. And I think you both have done a really good thing for bringing diving to the masses, and in a modern way. What appealed to people who sit in a tower block and will never would have seen underwater if you hadn't made the programs.
No, and I think that's also really important to say that we got a bit of flack about, a few things from the diving community about the TV show, but the TV show wasn't made for divers.
No, it's exactly.
Yeah. Where a lot of like Andy's and, Andy Torbett stuff it's made for the diving community. But, and with in the Monty stuff as well, even Monty stuff, the other stuff, it's a bit of both. But there's a base understanding of what they're doing, because they know that there's an audience that will watch that. Like, we're not going into the technical stuff about how we're doing and what we're doing, the full face mask and the comms and all of that stuff, and the air and the tank size and blah blah blah, because the guy in the tower block just doesn't care about that.
No,
and it's absolutely fine.
It's entertainment at the end of the day.
And this, I've seen comments, like on Facebook with the keyboard warriors and stuff. And you're absolutely right. The programs weren't, and he never, and I don't believe it, he never set out to say, right, I'm going to go down and I'll be the deepest diver and I'll be all this. And that weren't about that. It never was. It was about bringing diving and history to the masses, and you can't. I think people forgot that and didn't think, well, hold on a minute. Somehow you got to make a program which people like Amazon would want to buy and Sky will want to buy, and make it appealing. And unfortunately, if you was to send a diver, down to 100 meters and it's all dark and grim and all that, and how appealing is that going to be to the masses? It's just not.
No, and it's just, and the
Nobody's
other
gonna
thing is,
buy it.
it's
Nobody's gonna watch it.
no, and I think that's really hard to translate because, because I'm so engulfed in like the diving community, and we understand like, what needs to go into like 100-meter dive, what goes into a 30-meter dive, what goes even into like a 15-meter dive, all of that. And that's just going out to have the dive. That's not planning the dive for anyone else to see the dive. You know what I mean? Because we fuck up all the time, but nobody has a camera in front of our face, do they? They're not seeing every stupid thing that we do.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. And I think that Ross is always really, was great about that because there are fuck ups that happen. There are, we went the wrong way. Couldn't, it was even on my site, couldn't find anything because we had terrible visit. We had to go out the absolute next day and lay lines to go out, we just don't have a camera in front of us. And I think the other thing is if it's at 100 meters and somebody who doesn't dive is watching it, it could be on the moon. It's completely and totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
But if something's in 20 meters of water, there is a possibility that they could go and become a scuba diver and they could go and see those things themselves.
Yeah. Not everything within that program was within the realms of possibility for, Joe Blogs on the street. Yeah. No, really good. So do you think there'll be another series?
There's plans for series 3. That we're talking about it, and what we want to do and why we want to do it, and what we learned from 2 seasons before, and also I think one of the best things that we did was we went on the Mary Rose. Was I think that some of the best pieces to camera that Ross has ever done was on the Mary Rose because it was just so moving, and we had this amazing time there because my husband has worked on the Mary Rose before and he's the survey manager. So he's, he goes, when you get down there, it's going to be as black as the inside of a cow. And I got down there and I was like, I can see for ages. I can see everything. I go, this is like, we have this amazing visibility. And then we started to find all of the finds as well. Because we didn't expect to see anything, diving on the Mary Rose site is one thing, but we found, archaeological material that was part of the Tudor time period. And this didn't get into the cut because of what happened, but we were doing different things and I was waiting on the shot line for everyone to come back and then we were going to surface together. And I was waiting and I thought, I'll just have a couple minutes off because until the craziness dies down. And I was sitting there in amazing visibility because and I had a seahorse just bop across me on the seabed.
Wow.
And I got the audio somewhere and I was like, fuck me. No one's going to believe this. I thought for a second I was narked and I was like, no way.
No, it's real.
Yeah. And then I could hear on the comms that the whole slot of 7 more divers were coming back towards me. And I was like, I could just see this poor thing, gonna get blown away. So I grabbed it and I swam 5 meters that way to go poof, be free, my friend. Don't get, caught in our craziness. And while I was doing that, because you're not allowed to touch seahorses, you're not allowed to do any of that. You're not supposed to interact with them. It's not like we were there for that. And as I was swimming by, Richie Stevenson, who's the camera guy on it, was pointing towards my hands like this. Because usually if I've got something in my hands, it means I've got some archaeology to show. And I was and then Ross was next to me because somehow the three of us we exited the cat in the bath divers that we were with. And Ross was next to me and I opened my hands and I could hear Richie behind the camera squealing because I've never seen a seahorse in the UK. I've never ever seen one. So Richie's got this and it just floats up and it goes away. And Ross is standing there and he puts his hand out and it curls its tail around his hand. And it was this, we all looked at each other. We're we just got done diving the Mary Rose, which was the height of the whole day. And then we saw this seahorse, which we couldn't talk about and we couldn't show any of it.
No, not on TV.
We can't, and we were we're all sitting there. We just watched it go away. We're oh my God, got back on the boat. Did you see that? Because I really did think for the first couple minutes when I was watching, I thought, am I narked? I was I can't be narked. It's only 12 meters.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Yeah. Really?
No, I'll never see one again. That was it. And it was only like,
that's a one in a lifetime, isn't it? Really, that's
on
amazing.
the Merry Roads.
On the Merry Roads.
Yeah.
No, special times. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah. It was. We can talk about it, but we can't show anything.
Yeah. You see, I always thought they had everything up, and that wasn't until we spoke to Alex. What was Alex's surname?
Hildred.
Hildred.
Oh, Alex Hildred.
Yeah. When she was explaining that, they had to leave some of it down there because we haven't got the money to get it all up, so it's best place it's left down there.
Yeah, there's quite a bit down there. There's even some of the early excavation pits from like the bones that were on board, not human bones, but like the animals that were on board. There's several pits of those as well. And then there's the bow castle. There's also the one of the rails that got lost. That was originally what we were supposed to go find.
Okay.
And that was supposed to be part of the series that we were going to go and try and find one of the rails that got lost. Like you're supposed to bring it up, we're going to put it over here, bring it up later. It's about 8-10 meters long. But then the whole thing changed with the scouring out from the historic mooring chain, which is something now that we're following up about. But that only happened by accident. It only happened that we found out that it was doing so much damage because of the Ross Kemp show.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons to kind of do these things and to talk about what's going on and to put a little bit of money into, looking at our protected wrecks in that way and going back and visiting them, because, there isn't a ton of money. This is why part of the Merry Roads is still down there, because it's so expensive for conservation and monitoring, protected wrecks. It just costs so much money to, send out crews and dive crews and boats and, write up reports and all of that stuff. So it's nice to get like the public or the outsiders involved in seeing some of this stuff and why it's important. I mean, because, you think about it took 25 years to conserve the main portion of the Hall of the Merry Rose.
Yeah.
And it's still a yearly issue. It costs $4 million a year just to keep the Merry Rose running.
Yeah.
So, and that's not doing any kind of initiative with any more of the.
And that is an amazing thing. I know we went down there recently to have a look, and we shared about it on here before. And it is an amazing museum. And you can't help. You start like walk in the airlock, don't you? And you like look at it and you think, wow, that is an amazing sight to see.
No, it isn't. I mean, how I wish that we had, endless amounts of money that we could do that for so many shipwrecks, like to walk through them. Because not all shipwrecks, I have that much left of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When we think about it, because, all 4 of those levels had finds in it, and then the other half of the ship, disintegrated away. But imagine being able to do that for so many of like the other shipwrecks, to bring it up, because it comes alive for those that don't dive. And the other thing is like, even for the divers who worked on it, they only saw like a section of where they were working at that was like this. It wasn't until everything that got brought up that you put into context of a shipwreck. I mean, most of the times when I work on a shipwreck, it's unless we know what that type of ship was, like, okay, it's a 36 gun, Napoleonic frigate. Unless you have the plans of something like that, putting that picture together in your head, it's only in the small sections that you're working on that you can put it together. And that's the person who's working on it. My God, for the poor person who's trying to figure out exactly what's going on, or like, why is this archaeologist losing her shit? Because it's so exciting, because you can't understand it. It's very hard to put that all into context.
Yeah, it's a really interesting subject, and just bringing what's under the water up to the people that can see it.
The Merry Rose is one of the best museums. So I did some work with the World War II Museum in New Orleans, and they've got 4 city blocks now to kind of tell the story of like World War II through the American vision. And the Merry Rose does a really good job of putting that through in the space that they have.
It's good museum, that is. We better sort of do our questions. So with this in mind, if you could take 3 people down, who would you take diving with you?
Oh gosh, let's see. Who did I take diving with me? Well, I lost a really good friend recently called Ray Ives. He was a really old diver, kind of taught me about like going for a scranny or going for a fossick, which is kind of an organized scranny to find some spidge, which spidge is like, the word for a diver. And he just passed away at the end of August. Yes, but he was 87 and he went when what he do. He did love it. He died while he was scuba diving. So it's exactly how he wanted to go. Probably found that very large gold mermaid that he constantly was looking for. So I have to say, take Ray Ives for a dive. And then I take Ross as well, take Ross Kemp. And then I'd probably say take Alex Hildred, because I've spent a lot of time with her on different stuff, and we've been discussing this, and we're going back to to kind of monitor this issue, and she always thinks of something differently from how I'm thinking about it, because I'm thinking about it from a very practical point of view, and she's putting together the picture in like this stuff, because she has this amazing amount of history and the background of what she's done with the Mary Rose Trust, and I just love spending time with her. I always feel like I've become a better archaeologist for that. So those are the three people I'd like to take diving.
She was great on the podcast as well, and so much info, and you're like, wow, you could talk to her for hours, and you just like learning all the time, It's like, wow, I didn't know.
Yeah. No, she came over for dinner not that long ago, and I've got the thing that I'm really interested in, like, is in pottery specifically. And then she was telling me about this pottery book and that pottery book, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that they did this. And I was showing her some of the, like, because we just found some medieval pottery, and she was like, have you thought about this? And you thought about that? Like, no. And like, and then like the book list goes up, the Amazon cart's full of books again. And
yeah, no, she's a real character, full of amazing facts.
Yes.
So is there anything that takes you out of your comfort zone?
I would say deep diving on the full face mask. Anything that's over 30 meters on the full face mask, I'm really very conscious about, because of how you consume your air. Because if you're on the full face mask, the reason you're on is so you can talk.
And you're using
it at an insane rate. They're trying to be conscious about that, trying to kind of talk about that. And I also think, like, I've kind of noticed myself, like, I'll do 40-50 meter dives, like, mixed gas stuff, and it's really then about being conscious of, because I'm diving to do something. I'm not just going for a dive to kind of look at something. And kind of balancing all of those tasks to make sure that I don't do anything silly.
Right.
So post deeper than 30 meters on a full face mask, kind of. I wouldn't say I'm uncomfortable, but I certainly am paying a lot more attention.
We've only done 18 meters, haven't we? And that was only once in our full face masks. And I think it's something with depth, in them. I think you slowly kind of build your experience up rather than rush into it.
Yes.
And we've taken that very slowly, doing any depth.
It's something that you just have to slowly kind of work up to, to stay really, really careful, and you're conscious of how you're breathing. On the full face mask, and why, and why you're down there. And the other thing is, like, once you've accomplished your task, that you can come home. You know what I mean? Like, that's it, you're done. Let's go home. So it's a different type of diving, where if you go for, like, you're going for a bimble, and you're out to just have a nice day. It's a very different thing. And like, oh, I'm at I've got 100 bar left, we'll stay a bit longer. If you're at 100 bar and you finish what you were doing, you go home.
But it's two types of different diving, isn't it?
It is. They're very different.
Okay, last question. So this is a one that we always ask everybody. So we're going to give you a billboard, okay? And you can put anything you like on it. You can put a picture, video, you can put a statement, whatever you want. But the whole world is going to see it. What are you going to put on it and why?
Let's see. That's a really good one. There's two things, I guess, and it's about, I guess, okay. So I've got a video because I've always been asked, like, what's the best thing you've ever found, like, underwater? And I've got a video because I always wear a GoPro up here, of finding this sailor's token underwater for like the first time, like wafting away. And it's a little gaming token that would have been used in like a game that you would have had on deck.
So like a Monopoly type thing, or like
it's a little brass, almost like it's the size of like is it like a 10p coin.
Okay.
But it's got a symbol on it that is God, I can't think of it. It's a symbol from a different alphabet. I can't think of the name of it. And I remember it like coming into light because it hadn't been seen for like 200 years. It's bright brass.
Wow.
And I thought, it's absolutely amazing. The last person who had this was like in a sailor's pocket, and they were on deck playing. And now it just kind of revealed itself in the sand, you know.
That must be amazing.
When you feel something, when you find something like that, how does that make you feel?
Oh, just like the thing is, like, you stop, like at least for like 30 seconds, and you're like, like all this is like rushing through your head about what it could be, what it is, and where it's at, and where you were at, how do I do that? And then you go, that's just so fucking cool. And that
you get like goosebumps.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we were diving this past Wednesday, and I thought I had found something, because I thought I found another silver coin, and then it was lead, because lead and silver can look quite similar underwater with like how the oxidation looks like. And then it was just a piece of lead, and I was like, oh my god. You can even see on my GoPro, just like even here underwater, like. And I think that but that video takes some translation. Like, you can't just show the video without like giving some explanation about what's going on. And I always like to do, like, if we're doing posts or we're talking about things, I like to show things that don't take a massive amount of translation so that the public gets it like right away.
Yeah.
And I think that putting up the sonar image of all of those tires on Plymouth Sound, because you can tell that they're tires and the seabed is just covered in them. It looks a bit like a moon landing. That's what I would put on a big poster board. And I think a lot of people think that like somebody else is going to clean up the sea.
So I think that's really good. But the question I've got coming back from that is, has this made the local press down there about, because the non-diving community, just like people who live around the area, surely they should be shocked that all this is down there.
I think it's hard getting this kind of information out. Like when we did the crowdfunder, it first got like some traction, but trying to translate what, if you don't dive, trying to translate what the seabed looks like, because it's not like this like magical place with shipwrecks with their masts up and like sails on and this pristine environment. It's actually full of rubbish. It really is. And especially around the edges where if you do any kind of shore diving. And one, I don't think a lot of people want to hear that. You know, that this is what the underwater world looks like. And two, how do you translate that if you don't have very good visibility? Because you can't really see more than 10 meters, and it's always going to be that front-facing perspective of a diver. And unless you dive, you don't understand that perspective.
Yeah.
So the only way to get kind of those holistic views is to use the sonar. But you have to then explain what the sonar looks like, because it does look like a moon landing picture. And I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks, like, we're going to get the press release out about Greenergy being involved in taking that stuff, that we can kind of do this big push about, this is what the marine park looks like. This is what our shores look like around the UK. And it's not just, you know, we've got issues here with the sewage outfalls, you know, around the UK as well. But it's a combination of things.
Out of interest, you know, is there like certain brands that on these tires, and you think, hold on a minute, these companies are still going?
Yes.
So
And
without, like, probably best to mention them in public, but maybe it could be worth having a word with some of these companies and saying, did you know that some of your tires are actually now littering the seabed? Do you have some kind of responsibility about that? Because, you know, all these companies, the big brands out there who have got a hell of a lot more money than the rest of us have, you know, it's not really going to do, and they're all under pressure about being green and being environmentally aware and things like that. You know, and although they might not be directly responsible for how those tires actually got in there, but, you know, they are kind of responsible for producing them and what happens to them afterwards. And they might not have any responsibility for the point that they're there, but they do have responsibility for what happens to them and getting them up.
yes. And when we started the crowdfunder, I was communicating with the UK Tire Manufacturer Association.
Yeah.
However, I need to go back to them because they wanted to know, they wanted me to ask them something to do. Do you know what I mean? But if there's, at the time, and now we're in a different scenario, I want to go back and have a big ask, because you can't, some of these, you know, some of this stuff is like knowing how to ask and what you're asking for, because asking for like a couple thousand for something is like, they may not take it seriously. But if you have a big ask that you've really thought about, and how you now see it, it's going to translate into the, you know, into the project, because this is going to be like a 10-year project. Now I can go back and say, right, we know how we're going to do this. We have a place for the tires to go. They're going back to a circular economy. And, you know, there is a bit of responsibility to those, you know, to those manufacturers. And I think they'd also like to, you know, kind of give back. So my plan is to do that. The one thing I haven't been really good about it, though, is because we're getting the tires up, I always forget to get the tire manufacturer's name from the side of the tire, because we're always so busy digging them up.
Because there's dates on the tires as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Because a lot of the stuff we were first pulling up, we were talking about the stuff that's in Jennycliff, like where the where some of the yachts come in and the cruise lines come into Anchor, and those tires were almost all from the 80s, like early 80s.
Right.
Crazy. Let's say.
So that was more like, and they didn't have any holes in them, so they weren't fenders.
I'm not surprised. I found a crisp packet a while ago, and I shared about it, and that was 20 years old, crisp packet, and that was, apart from the dirt that was on it,
it was in
mint condition. And I tweeted the company and never got a response, funny enough, about the 20-year-old crisp packet. They ignored that.
Yes.
Tweeted the picture to him and said, what do you rank to this?
Yes. And I think that's part of, you know, part of doing a good project like this is trying to do good communications.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to think about how we're saying it and why we're saying it, and also getting a little bit of heat behind, you know, this is controversial. It can't, you know, I know everyone's really excited about the Britain's first national marine park, and so am I. However, the best thing to do is to clean it up before we start putting, like, doing more, you know, things to bring up conservation, because we can't do, you know, responsible conservation in a garbage pit.
Yes.
You can't, you can't do that. It won't work. You know, we'll just be wasting that money if we haven't cleaned it up. And, you know, even even in some of the areas, because the other thing is there's a historic layer of coal in Plymouth because
Yeah.
of we had a coal refueling area here. So in certain places on the seabed, it's just covered in coal dust. So if you do any type of coring, which we were helping with some of these coring interpretations, if they go through a layer of carbon, which is coal,
Yeah.
they'll biologists will think, well, why this has got to be something that has died off and is there, not thinking that it's a historic issue. And then the interpretation is different. So you have to bring in all of this research to kind of, understand like historic ports and harbors and things like that. And there's just crap everywhere. I mean, like we went for a dive. I've got a video I need to put up. We went for a dive this week around the waterfront, and I was heading out because I knew there were some tires out there, and we went past like because there's a big harbor and there's lots of anglers, and there was so much fishing line down there. It was disturbing. There was just mattresses and mattresses of fishing line, and then they get caught on each other. And by the time we got back, I had this massive bag of fishing line, and we had been down for like, I never found the tires because we didn't get past it.
Wow.
And then found all the angling line, found 2 electric bikes that had been dumped in.
Oh my God.
And then I also found one of those, like a lobster hook, like one of those proper hooks, like to get lobsters or crabs like out of holes.
Yeah.
And it was like this massive collection of stuff. Like, it was like 5 pounds of lead weights and I don't know how many hundreds of meters of line, that's down there. And, and that's catching on other stuff because it was wrapped around a couple of, it was wrapped around the base of a couple of crabs as well. And they can't get anywhere. And, I think it's just about being a bit more responsible. So if we are diving, at least cut them up, into, because they just get caught and stuff. And I think once you start seeing this stuff, it's about getting those videos out as well.
Yeah.
About
Social
what
media.
this looks like. Yeah. And also going out to, because the other stuff that was there, and I don't know how this happens, is just full fishing rods. Like the whole rod is down there and the reel and the whole thing, like they're just, and we collected a bunch of those. And I looked at it afterwards. I was like playing with it. Like, I don't fish, but I was like, this all seems to be in working order.
How does it get there?
What did somebody like, is this one of those things like happens with golf? Like, did somebody just get angry enough and like,
Probably,
and just threw the whole thing in, like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I've been out here for 6 hours. I've caught absolutely nothing.
Away.
Yeah.
It was this big and it took my rod.
Well, that's the only thing I could figure about it. I was like, the rod's down here, the reel's down here, the whole spool, like, is down here as well.
That's mad.
I just couldn't believe how much stuff was down there. And, everywhere's like this.
Yeah. Well, we'll look forward to seeing some more posts about it and sharing about it.
We're going to we need to come down and
yes,
do clean out, because that'd be really good. We
definitely
doing river cleans up here, so that'd be really good to come down and get involved. So that'd be really cool.
Yeah, we've got a big cleanup scheduled for October 7th.
October the 7th.
Yes, and that is, we're going to do a big waterfront cleanup where we need divers and we need people who don't dive, because we're going to put stuff on ropes and that needs to be hauled up the harbor side.
Yeah, that'd be good to get involved with that. If people want to find out more about the tire project and about yourself, where are they best to go to?
So we've got the Ships Project website, which is shipsproject.org. And then we've got the Thousand Tires website, which is thousandtires.org. And then we're Ships Project runs 1,000 Tires. So on our social media stuff, it's all the Ships Project.
Yeah.
Right. And we're on all of it. We're to remember to post on all of them. Yes.
And we're sitting in the dark. I
know. I didn't really think about that. Oh my God.
Yeah. We'll put the links to all the websites on the show notes so people can just click on the links and then head over, and if they've got any questions, can they send you emails or?
Oh yeah. Yes, please do. I've got Oh, sorry, on the light. Hang on. I can't see because it's so dark. Yeah, no, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and on Instagram and that, because
Great.
I've got mudlarkers or guys or divers who send me pictures all a couple times a week going, I think I found something like amazing, and I was like, well, it's a really lovely find, but it is just a Victorian bottle. So yeah.
But it's good that people have this kind of passion and interest to
It is.
Oh, no, it's great because the one thing that we really want, this is like just a quick story. We you want to talk to your divers, you want to see what they're doing. So about 3 weeks ago, a diver was out diving in Barn Pool here in Plymouth and took a picture of a Bronze Age stone anchor underwater. And I was like, oh my God, because it's about 5,000 years old, isn't it? And I was like, did you bring it up? He's like, no, we just left it down there. I'm like,
no way.
What'd you say? Where were you?
Where were you? Like, and then I was like, I was having to like map out where they were at the state of tide and where they got dropped, because they didn't put a shot down, they just dropped them in, right? So where would you be drifting at that depth on that day of that state of tide? And then we've done it's at 32 meters.
5,000-year-old anchor.
Yeah, so you want I always want questions and people to contact us and go, what is this? We're happy to give you an age date on your pottery and your bottles and your things, anything like that, Yeah. But the reason to get all these stories is because you go over to a diver's house and you portholes, and they've got bottles, and they've got all these these interesting things, and then there's usually one really good find. There's this, I remember went over to somebody's house and they're like, oh, found this jug. They're like, obviously some kid made it for their parents. And I was like, no, it's medieval. That's why it looks so wobbly.
Yeah. No, there's all these little nuggets.
Yes.
Yeah. So well, it's good because you never stop diving and never stop looking. You never know what you're going to find.
No. Yes. Yeah, and because the British Isles are so old, coming from the Great Lakes, where kind of you have what you're seeing down there, unless it's prehistoric and it's like Native American, you've got about 100 years of shipping. So you're really looking at things from 1830s, maybe 1840s up until 1920, and that's kind of it. Yeah. It's a very specific time period, and the shipwrecks are amazing, especially the wooden ones that are a bit deeper. But it's a very isolated time history. Here in the British Isles, you've got thousands and thousands of years of history, and also 2 world wars and lots of occupations, and and because of all those interactions, there's just stuff, and that stuff tells such a fabulous story.
Yeah,
and it's never ending, which is the best thing. Yeah. Well, it's been really, really interesting chatting.
Been awesome. Yeah,
and hopefully it's inspired people to sort of look into all this more, and especially the Thousand Tire project. That's just amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking me to come on.
No, it's been
you're very welcome. So we'll if listeners have got any questions, either they can contact us or contact you directly, and hopefully we can raise some interest for October the 7th as well.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
that would be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, that's been
no, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Great. Well, have to do this again sometime next year, and we have an amazing find, something that we're
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just keep in touch with us, and anything you want us to share, ping it our way, and we'll get it out there as well for you.
Great. Thank you.
But it's been brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on.
No, great. Yeah, that was extremely enjoyable, but a couple hours just passed like nothing.
I know, it's good.
Great. Okay, we'll catch up soon, and thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks.
Okay.
See you again. Cheers.
Bye.
Well, what can we say? Well, first off, got flickering light. We've got to say thank you very much for Mallory coming on. Wow, this is our first recording since June?
Yes, so we've had our summer break, haven't we? And we've been busy out on trips and diving, so this is back to it now.
I'm being attacked by flying insects. But so much in that recording. We hope our listeners enjoyed that. got to look up the 1,000 Tire Project, because that's just like horrendous, isn't it? The fact that there are all these tires and other rubbish are down there. And also, look at the Ships Project, with what Mallory's doing, getting involved with there.
Yeah, and I think it's great because it's just such a diverse, some people might think Mallory, archaeology, underwater, but there's so much more to it. And she's kind of brought that whole thing alive, and really, really interesting, and passionate about the diving, and really down to earth as well, which was great.
And I like what she said about Ross as well, and Ross's program. We've touched on it and we've talked about it a few times, haven't we?
Yeah, but it kind of brings it together, and it's nice kind of linking guests all together.
Mary Rose as well.
Yeah. So if you've listened to this, then now you can go and listen to Ross Kemp and the Mary Rose Project with Alex Hildred as well.
Yeah. So and also there's some things on YouTube when we've interviewed some of the other divers who are involved in the lifting of the Mary Rose as well.
Yeah. So, but no, that's a really, really good episode. Really enjoyed it.
Yep. So thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. And as Gemma just said, there's like a whole plethora of episodes out there.
A library.
All free to download at your pleasure, and have a listen to them. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes if that's where you're listening to us, and that'd be really cool. Don't forget, and also get in contact. We love hearing from you. If you've seen our flag in the waft in the wind over the summer, that'd be really cool. If you've seen us around, that'd be nice.
Yes, yeah. So if you've got any questions for either of us about our full face masks, about podcasting, drop us a line, talk to us. We love hearing from people. It's always interesting wherever you are in the world.
Yeah. Or if you are a diver and you've got a particular good story that you want to share, get in contact. And we are getting booked up. We have got quite a few people coming on, haven't we?
Yes.
Over the course of the coming months. We're now back recording after our holiday. And so, if you have got a story and you want to share, here's the place to come and share it. And we'll get you on.
You can either email us. We have got a phone. You can drop us a WhatsApp or a voice message, whatever works best for you. But do get in contact.
Or if you are a business and you're a manufacturer, doesn't have to be in the diving world, but if you've got a connection to the watery world somewhere or the great outdoors, get in contact. And, we do love working with great brands. So, get in contact. If you listen to this, we're going out to 136 countries.
Yeah. Last count.
It never stopped to blow my mind, Gemma, the fact that people download this and in all over the world, which is amazing. We're slowly taking over the planet.
The furthest corners of the earth we listened in.
And I always say Bungie is the center of the universe.
Well, there we go.
We are. It proves it.
Yeah. So we hope you've enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.
We certainly will. Speak to you very soon. But for right now, that was
the Big Scuba Podcast.
Now that does wrap up today's episode of the Big Scuba Podcast. But if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button depending on what platform you are listening on. That way you will never miss an episode from us. But if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and did enjoy what you heard today, we would really appreciate it if you head to the show page to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help us. If you do, please take a screenshot of that review and send it to us on Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out to say a big thank you. If you have any questions for us or anything that has been mentioned in today's episode, be sure to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or send us an email. The links are in the show notes. We will get back to you no matter what. If you have made it to this point in the episode, we both want to say a big thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.